At the entrance of a peaceful suburban neighborhood, a man in a uniform aimed a firearm at my wife. But instead of the reaction he expected, she simply raised an eyebrow, tilted her head, and asked, "Do you know what a proper safety check is?" She didn't flinch. In fact, she smiled slightly. Within moments, she had taken the weapon from his hands, safely disarmed him, and returned the gun, empty, as though it were an everyday occurrence. But the best part? It all happened on camera. The moment the footage went public, people immediately started asking questions. How is this even possible? How does she pull that off without causing a scene? You see, people like James, the overzealous security guard who thought he could intimidate my wife, don't get it. They mistake forceful behavior for true danger. They believe power lies in loud voices, heavy builds, and intimidating tattoos. But my wife, she's 5 feet 6 inches, a calm presence with an unshakable demeanor, the type who could calmly assess a situation and outmaneuver it without ever raising her voice. This time, James was the one who ended up looking foolish, and the entire security company wasn't far behind. Let me rewind a bit. We had just moved to Evergreen Ridge, a gated community in a quiet, affluent area. The pristine lawns, the perfect little bird baths in every yard. It all seemed like the perfect place for us to start fresh. My wife had spent years in high-stress operations, moving from one dangerous mission to another across continents. Her body bore the marks of those years of service. As for me, I work in tech, cybersecurity specifically. I deal in paranoia, constant vigilance, and keeping a low profile. I thought I had everything figured out until I met the HOA. The Homeowners Association, there was nothing short of a dictatorship. Their rules weren't just suggestions, they were demands. From strictly monitored lawn sizes to the most trivial complaints about leaf blowers, they had a system for everything. The president of the HOA, Steve, was a former mall security guard turned community watch chief. He had the charisma of a rock and the ego to match. His favorite sidekick was Carl, the oversized security guard with a badge that seemed comically larger than his brain. Then there was the ridiculous security system. It wasn't enough to just have a gate. No, any guest coming through had to be on the pre-approved list, submitted 72 hours ahead. If you didn't have the little sticker on your car, placed just right, you could be stuck outside. My wife, exhausted from a long night at the hospital visiting her father, arrived home early one morning, exhausted and in gym clothes. She forgot her pass. No big deal, right? Carl, however, didn't see it that way. Rather than simply verifying her address, he decided this was his moment to play the tough guy. He accused her of trying to pull something shady. He wouldn't even let her call me to sort it out. Instead, he tried to escalate the situation. When he threatened to keep her from entering the community, she calmly requested he verify her name in the system. But Carl refused. That's when he pulled out his gun. It wasn't aimed at her in a defensive way. It was more like a power move. At that moment, she decided to show him exactly what it meant to truly be a threat. She stepped out of her car, calmly approached him, and within moments, the shotgun was safely in her hands. She didn't hurt him. She didn't even yell. But she made sure Carl realized the mistake he'd made, all while cameras caught the entire encounter. The footage was clear, and once the police arrived, Carl tried to explain that my wife had lost control. But the police saw things differently, especially after watching the video. What really shook me was how the HOA handled it. Instead of stepping up, they chose to blame my wife for aggressively disarming Carl. The HOA president, Steve, immediately called for an emergency board meeting, implying my wife was a danger to the neighborhood, despite her legal right to defend herself on her own property. They suspended her access to the community entrance as a precaution. We weren't going to let that slide. Soon, we received a letter from the county, an investigation into the HOA's handling of security, weapons, and misappropriated funds. It wasn't just us filing complaints anymore. It turned out some of our neighbors had had enough of the HOA's overreach too. One neighbor, a retired military officer who'd seen the footage, gave us some crucial backing, tipping us off to other issues within the HOA. The cracks in Steve's little kingdom began to show. The real shift happened when I dug deeper into the HOA's records. There was proof of unapproved weapons purchases and unlicensed security guards. They had used community funds to buy firearms, claiming they were for safety. I submitted the evidence to the county's compliance board and even shared it with local media. The video went viral. At first, Steve tried to downplay it, sending out statements defending Carl and blaming everyone else. But the public pressure mounted. Then came the hammer. The county launched an official audit of the HOA. The board was forced to step down. The investigation into Steve's questionable purchases and illegal security practices moved forward. Finally, the HOA was under investigation for corruption. On the day of the hearing, we arrived at the county offices. My wife wore her professional military uniform. Not military, but a uniform that spoke of years of service and discipline. Steve, meanwhile, showed up with his usual forced smile, but it was clear from the start. He knew his time was up. His supporters had abandoned him, and when the charges were read out, misuse of funds, illegal weapons purchases, and more, Steve's face went pale. It was over. The decision was swift and clear. The HOA was placed under review. All current officers, including Steve, had to step down. The most satisfying part? The residents who had supported the HOA out of fear were now rallying behind us. The victory was complete. In the weeks that followed, the HOA was officially dissolved. New elections brought in a board that actually cared about the community. The shotguns were confiscated, and Carl's name disappeared from the records. Steve? He resigned with a polite but telling letter. We framed it and hung it in the garage. Mission accomplished. A month later, we got a letter from the county sheriff's office, recognizing my wife's actions during the confrontation. They even offered her a position with the tactical unit. Her response? I've already faced the most dangerous unit I'll ever face. As for us, life settled down. No more HOA drama, no more threats, just a neighborhood where peace was restored. Not by pretending nothing happened, but by knowing that when you face injustice, you don't flinch. In the end, it wasn't about the power of a weapon or the strength of authority. It was about standing your ground with integrity and calm confidence when faced with injustice. My wife proved that true strength isn't loud or aggressive, but calculated, poised, and unwavering in the face of intimidation. The system might have been rigged to favor those with power, but it couldn't silence someone who knew how to navigate the rules and challenge them with integrity. The victory wasn't just about the HOA's downfall or the reinstatement of our rights. It was about showing our neighbors, friends, and even the HOA board itself that respect and fairness matter. What started as a simple misunderstanding spiraled into a battle of values. And in the end, we didn't just win a legal battle. We won back our community's trust and unity. Now, when I drive past the gate, it's not with frustration or anger, but a quiet pride. This wasn't just about keeping control over our home. It was about preserving the principle that no one, no matter how small or quiet, should ever be intimidated into silence. And in the end, that was our most powerful victory.